he there? If it's, you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It's anyone. And like, what is the thing here in the UK about trying to make sports and athletes like not? You can't be a credible personality if you're doing something outside of being like. It's 90 minutes in a day. I'm playing football. I'm done. Okay, and I've got other things I'm doing.
I have a life, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, who is it? Like Bellerin. Bellerin wanted to be a fashion icon or guru. Like, he's done now. He doesn't even try anymore because they won't let him. They won't allow him to express himself. And there's nothing wrong with the boy. He had his long hair and he wanted to look, and he had his wild style, and he's like, you know,
the white socks.
Yeah, the white. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm like, he should be allowed to do that because he's a young guy. He's 24,
something like that.
Exactly. He's gonna want him to express himself, but they just killed him. They just would not let him get out there.
I think a lot of that was to do with what in the fans' mind, what he's primarily getting paid to do. And if his game is not on point, which when he first came to Arsenal, I don't want to turn this into an Arsenal chat, but so he was looking very promising, and he was very much on his game. And then it may have just been a coincidence, but he's seemed to go off form when he started focusing on modelling.
Yeah,
and I think that is what really sent for fans. And like, if you look at in terms of like the flashiness that we get told about, like the Pogbas, the Aubameyangs, and all this sort of thing, generally speaking, they produce on the pitch.
Yeah,
and it's
apart from Pogba, but
well, no. What I'm saying,
let's not get there.
That's a whole different debate.
Yeah.
But it's to do. I think it's just to do with the perception of if you're not actually fully focused on your football, then of course you're not going to be performing. So cut this out for now.
Yeah.
Focus on the game, get to where you need to be, and then you can make even more money later on because you'll be an even better player. But that's very much a sidetrack.
Yeah. I feel for Raheem Sterling because the guy is like one of the top 3 footballers in the Prem, and now that he's in his element and he's not, even if he did anything, if he so much as blows his nose in the wrong direction after a game, it's gonna go down in. Oh, he's too rich, or he spent too much on that tissue.
Like gold-plated tissue.
Gold-plated tissue. You know what I'm saying? It's just that's wrong.
But remember as well, thanks to Sterling himself, his own public perception has changed a hell of a lot in the last few years. Yeah. Because even if people didn't really have an opinion on him, they would kind of lap up all of this media negativity. Yeah. Whereas now that he's actually come forward and he's standing up for himself, he's the figurehead of this sort of anti-racism debate that we're going to move into now, actually.
Exactly, yeah. Okay.
So, Rodney, in terms of using AI with the sort of racism that's kind of been going on recently, especially, where do you see it going? Because it seems to me that what we've discussed so far is that people's behaviours are fairly predictable, and we can almost anticipate what is coming next. So is there a way to apply that to an issue like racism in sport?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Luckily, Carl gave me a quick heads up on this one. So I think, but I think it's all about context, because like how you apply, like doing economics at uni. I know it's completely separate from maybe this conversation, but how you approach a problem is you do scenario planning, right? So and then you do simulations. You'd be like, okay, so this is racism in a stadium. This is racism on social media. This is racism in a school. This is racism in sports. Like all within like the sports side of like conversation. Like let's say maybe in training for the youth players, academy players, and then you go to senior on the social media. And it's just understanding what is just happening within each scenario. You're going to apply different solutions for each scenario. Okay. Like stadium-based stuff, a lot of facial recognition would be a great way to pinpoint who is being racist, pinpoint what is being said through like picking up the tones and picking up the speech patterns, picking up the facial attributes. And maybe that will help officials like pinpoint who is being racist, and slowly but surely pick out one from another, etc., etc. Whilst as you're doing it, maybe on social media, again, maybe like more like keyword analysis and certain elements AI, like within machine learning, there's like natural language processing where you pick up the words and tones,
Right. Okay.
and you get a sense of what they're saying. You know, if they're saying a few words which is not nice, you can pick it up really quickly, and maybe they can be punished as a result. But for me, so what I was mentioning with Carl is that I think with AI, it's based off data,
Okay.
and someone is building and processing that data. So you got to ask who is processing that data, and like I would bet my bottom dollar that it's going to be a white middle-aged man who will be doing so. So if he is saying what is racist, racial
Abuse or anything.
abuse, behavior,
Yeah.
it's going to be from what he has experienced, what he has learned. So he's going to program it as, let's say in computer terms, 0 and a 1. He'll be like, okay, that's a 1. Or so if it's like everyone in this room watching the clip, they'll be like, no, that's actually a 0. That's definitely racist.
That's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so it's about who's doing it
Who's
as well,
actually
getting a bit of
programming
diversity within the text frame.
Yeah.
Because these are the guys that are building the infrastructure.
Right.
effectively.
Okay.
So it's almost like the AI itself is just a reflection of whoever happens to be on the buttons, really.
Yeah, it's like it's like a chain reaction. Who kickstarts it? It will just have implications. Maybe you can iterate and get more accurate over time, perhaps.
Okay. So you couldn't predict where there would be some kind of racist language behavior in a game, like England goes to go and play in
Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
So look at the Bulgarian.
I don't want to
example.
say it because okay, yeah.
Look at the Bulgarian
okay.
example.
Oh yeah.
Would
you have known?
If you type those numbers, there is a history of hooliganism amongst their own supporter base. There's a history of gains behind closed doors. There's a history of rising nationalism and neo-Nazi support.
Yeah.
And there's a history you can program in when they are not used to having people of colour in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would have been aware that England have people of colour.
Yeah.
So,
By the way, Bulgaria had 2 black players on the pitch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
okay.
No, I'm just saying.
I didn't realize. I didn't know they were barely. Like,
It's
wow.
just-
Okay.
yeah.
With all that news, that totally escaped me.
Oh wow. Exactly.
But sorry, go on, Farron.
There's this history you can say, this has happened, all this information that you have. To me, it was the most predictable thing. It is because if you put all those different variables, the history of their crowd behaviour, hooliganism, the rise of neo-Nazism in that country, that they have booed players of colour before. Could you not just say predict that this is going to happen, and we know there's going to be this behaviour it's going to carry out?
Yeah.
So to me, when people were reacting to it, I was like, that's the most. It should be beyond reacting to it. It's the most predictable thing. It's so predictable. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think there will be a percentage, right? A probability that will say between 0 and 100%. What is the likelihood of it happening? And I think you can program a lot of those things that you're saying, like the socioeconomic status of the country, the history of the country, how many black people are maybe populated. There'll be like a bunch of variables, and you'll get an equation to which you get a percentage at the end. But I think it's like super important to look at, pinpointing, to taking the numbers into reality a little bit. So if you say there's going to be a 70% chance that there's going to be racism in this game, the only way that there can be racism is from the fans. So we're saying effectively that there's going to be a large percentage of the fans that will be racist. So for me, it would be like, how do we pinpoint those people that are going to be racist? Because if you take that out of the equation now, all of a sudden from 70 it drops to 20, it drops to 10. Because it's all about how you translate it from a probability into a real life scenario, which is the real tough part. And I guess no one's sort of like done it yet. And I think...
But why?
I think sports is very slow to incorporate technology and very slow to admit to the reality behind a lot of these
I
things.
think with all that money around,
I'm gonna say it's the money.
with all that
That's
money
what it is.
around,
Well, yeah, there's loads of
with all that money around sport,
especially in
in
football.
terms of its infrastructure and
Yeah.
supporting it and making people travel and
Yeah.
to my mind, it is predictable. So when you read a newspaper and you see it on the news, oh, that's so bad.
Well,
But shall I tell you?
It does not on a human conscious level. You know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
True.
you also know it's going to happen for a very different reason. And that's because it exists in society. Whenever you get a large group of people together from a particular society, those sort of threads from society will carry in to that crowd of people. And if that's what, like, so Bulgaria, for example, that's very, very deeply ingrained into what they would call culture. So anyone, I don't think you really needed much data to be able to say that was going to happen. Now, although we have clear issues with racism in this country and within football in this country, I think it would be a lot harder in the terms that you're using, Carl, in terms of using data to actually pick it out, because I think it can be a lot more discreet. Now, if we're talking about the sort of the Raheem Sterling incident versus Chelsea, where those fans are just like laying into him, like from 4 of them in the front row, whatever it was, that's clear. But you're not going to get a group of 50 men turning up to a Premier League game dressed all in black, doing Nazi salutes, and
unless you go to Millwall,
Bermondsey.
But even then,
using an example, there's a history behind that. There's a culture behind.
No, of course there is, but I'm talking about addressing the individuals responsible, rather than. I mean, we can take the approach that the game should completely stop, and that's fine. But I think identifying the actual problem, using data to identify where the problem lies, I think it's less likely to work in this country.
But surely you can use data to prevent crimes.
Yeah, well, as in like outside of sports? Or
Just crime in society.
Yeah.
So you can use
the right questions.
You write questions. You can predict a crime. You can predict the access to create a crime, the likelihood to commit a crime based on things like social economics.
Yeah.
So if we're saying racism is a society problem, surely you can find those predictive behaviours.
No, for sure. But I think it depends on who the responsibility is to sort of like do that. So the sports club, they don't know about tech. They just know about running stadiums and like finding the next Lionel Messi and trying to perform on the game. So now all of a sudden we're saying, okay, racism. They don't know how to react. So that's why UEFA gets involved and they provide UEFA and all the other bodies. They provide like rule, like frameworks and whatnot. But it's also for I guess acceptance of technology. So it'll be like other companies, maybe not just say within my space, but other people who will pick up other things. Like for example, I have a good friend who runs a sort of like government-backed initiative whereby they track pedophiles online. And that's a big thing. So it's government-backed. So they're looking for private technology companies to solve the problem, and then they try and roll it out in a scalable way. Similar, I was thinking in sports, it will be a private tech company from wherever in the world, US, Israel, UK, Europe, and then they'll provide a piece of tech that allows you to do as you're saying, like predict it, and then like as you're mentioning as well, like see the subtle side of things, and then they'll start thinking, okay, let's test it out for this home game, for this away game, and not internationally, etc. So I think it's on they'll never do it themselves. Someone has to come and say, hey, I've built a solution that does it, pay me X amount, and you can use it wherever, whenever, and it delivers. I think it'll be on the tech, the Mark Zuckerbergs, potentially.
I think that's where the worry is, though, when it's when it comes to them paying out to have something implemented. Maybe I'm just too cynical. I don't think the whether it's like for whoever it is, that they're just concerned with lining their own pockets, to be honest. And whoa, have I gone too deep?
You agree?
You can bleep that out.
It's done.
Right. Well, that's the reality, but that is kind of really the reality of it, isn't it? Though, like what length would they go to cut out certain things which are kind of more historic as part of almost. I know this sounds terrible to say, but sometimes you feel as if racism is part of